Okay, I think we do have a sufficient number of participants, so I think we can begin with the webinar now. Just once, sir, are you here?
Hi, thanks, Tushar. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's just begin with the webinar now. So a very good morning to all. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal, and on behalf of the Periyar School of Architecture, I welcome you all to webinar number 33 in the Every Friday webinar series. The series is a platform for young minds to express their ideas. Today's webinar will be discussing tactical urbanism as a tool to relook at our streets, presented by architect Jashwanth. So before introducing the speaker, I would like to honor architect Premendra Raj Mehta, who is the mentor of our school. He is also the former president of the Council of Architecture. Sir, if you could just speak a few words of motivation for us today morning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tushar, and very warm welcome to all the participants, and in particular, Jashwant. I'm extremely pleased that you have chosen to share some of your ideas on urbanism. This forum is for young minds, as Tushar said, and our idea is that some new ideas should get generated by these discussions here. Periyar School is committed to carry forward some of these ideas with the respective authorities or institutions or amongst interest groups. And we welcome all the participants to share this platform with their friends so that anybody, irrespective of the discipline they are in, but any of their ideas which can cause any improvement in human habitat, the idea is would be welcome here, and a discussion would naturally follow. I also want to tell you that some of the presentations made here, we have requested those speakers to convert it into a short course so that could also be offered, so that we could have a follow-up discussion on your idea, on your thought, and the issue which you think requires any kind of attention in the present day context. I would welcome all of you once again. Jashwant, you in particular, very warm welcome to you. And I'm extremely happy that you have chosen to be here. And I think you would all enjoy. I would encourage you to have a post presentation discussion, because a thought is presented to you, but it must also encourage you to think and feel free to interact with Jashwant or amongst yourself so that this idea could have a meaningful outcome. Thank you. Thank you very much once again for being here.
Thank you so much. So now we'll introduce the speaker for today's webinar, architect Jashwanth. So Jashwanth is an architect and urban designer with over 8 years of experience in master planning projects supporting GDCI, the World Bank, ADB, and other donor, multi, and bilateral donor agencies. He has also worked with consulting firms like Surbana Jerome, IPE Global, and government entities like the Delhi Urban Arts Commission, as well as on smart city projects such as the Amravati Smart City, Pimpri Chinchwad Smart City, Shillong Smart City, and the New Town Kolkata Smart City. Jashwant holds a master's in urban design from the School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, and a bachelor's in architecture from the School of Planning and Architecture, JNTU, Hyderabad. I would request Jashwant to now begin with this presentation, and it is a request to all the participants to keep yourselves muted for the duration of the presentation. Once the presentation is over, we will open the floor for discussion, for questions and discussions. Thank you. Jashwant, you can now begin with the presentation.
Thanks, Tushar. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Periyar School of Architecture, for having me on board. I am very excited for taking up this presentation. This is something which is very close to my heart. So like Tushar mentioned, few housekeeping points or key points before we start the discussion ahead. We'll all take the questions at the end. And if you have any questions related to any slides, you can put it up in the chat box and we will take or discuss at the end. My name is Jashwant. I'm an architect urban designer. I work with Global Designing Cities Initiative as a program manager for India. I am currently based out of Pune, Maharashtra, working with the Maharashtra Ministry of Transport in India and Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, where we provide technical support, capacity building, and training for the city agencies and work closely with the staff to train them and equip them on the principles of streets. Prior to this, like Tushar mentioned, I worked with WRI India on the Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge. I come with more than 8+ years of experience, and road safety has been my favorite. I have worked with several smart cities, including Delhi. I was also part of the most prestigious project of the capital city called Amravati. So before going any further, uh, thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. I hope we'll all be inclined towards making our streets better for people. The overall structure of the presentation are in 3 parts. The first part, I will be discussing about the organization and how we are, as an organization, are bringing change in our society. Second part, we'll be talking about what are streets and how streets can be relooked at by using tactical urbanism as a tool. And the third part would be about the case studies, both from Indian and global best practices, what we have worked upon. As one of the most influential urban design organizations, the Global Designing Cities Initiative was founded in 2014 by Janet Sadiq Khan. Janet Sadiq Khan was the commissioner of New York and under the guidance of Michael Bloomberg. The mission for Global Designing Cities Initiative lies on developing best practices for street design based on the wide variety of street typologies around the world and enhance public or sustainable mobility transport. GDCI, or the Global Designing Cities Initiative, is a New York-based nonprofit working with cities around the world in shaping their streets to be safer, sustainable for all the road users. Since its release, the Global Street Design Guide has been translated into 5 additional languages and endorsed with more than 109 cities around the world. Following the success of the Global Street Design Guide, we have released the second major publication called Designing Streets for Kids, which received the prestigious award on the Michael International Road Safety Award in 2021. While streets are the major challenges, where the cities face major challenges, and fatalities are the major global health crisis today, we're thrilled and excited with a distinguished group and organization who knows these issues better than anyone else and who have already been working in doing so much incredible work around this global health crisis. So without any further delay, let's start this presentation. In this presentation, like I've mentioned, we will be looking at tactical urbanism or tactical interventions, which are low cost and quick fixes on the streets today. So I would urge each of you to write down what is streets for you or what are streets for you. If you can write it down with like in a single word, it would be great in the chat box. I will then further look into all of this at the end of the presentations. So streets are the lifeline of the city. They connect people, places. While a handful of the cities recognize the value of the largest network of public spaces and are working on it, we believe that relooking the city from the lens of safety, comfort, can not only enhance the quality of the space, but also improve the quality of people. Streets are the largest continuous public spaces, and these are also the biggest assets of the city. Streets are also contested places for people to congregate, like be it Ganesh Puja, be it any procession for Durga Puja, or any processions related to rallies, which all of these take place on the streets. Of course, there are many other lenses through which we can look at our streets. Like I'm sure you all of you might have put down in the chat box what are streets for you. So streets also help us connect from places to places. These help us get around cities and access our jobs, schools, and key destinations. They play a critical role in cleaning our air and how well we manage our water, our transportation choices, and also have a huge impact on climate change today. Streets help our cities to grow and flourish. Great streets are great cities, or great cities have great streets. Further, helping helping the cities to deliver good to our businesses. These help to add value to our land, real estate, and also impacting where and how we spend our limited budgets in the grey infrastructure. They shape our everyday experiences of the city and how connected we feel with our neighborhoods and how livable our cities are. I'm sure all of you might have put what are streets for you. For me, streets are in the next few slides what streets mean to me. They allow us to use or entice different modes, so which allowing us to move. Streets help people or children to play. Streets also help us to learn, ride bicycle or bike. Streets also help people to dine out, congregate, meet. Streets are the places where we celebrate and have fun. Streets are places where we perform and dance. Streets are places where individuals can make money and also spend it. The sense of social cohesion and community is always looked down onto the street. This gives us a good chance or good time to spend time with our old friends or meet new ones or enjoy some nature or how we relax on streets or on a great morning. Streets are also the front doors of our homes and our businesses. While streets are all of this today, but how are we as people moving around the city with the most efficient ways? We see many of the cities have the same problems we have been facing here in India. It encourages more car-centric transformations. People drive just out of simple self-preservation. And when this is our default template, you can forget about safe biking and walking conditions and good transit. Unfortunately, it's been the default more in the developing world in the last few decades. If you turn the urban streets into speedways, shunt pedestrians into overpass, and tell them they need to spend 10 minutes just to cross the street, as we do here far too often, the deadly results are all too predictable. Like one of the key stories which I always remember from urban design was during my first conversation when I had it around with one of my professors, when he asked me this question: why are foot-over bridges built or why are subways built? So the easiest answer, what everyone can reflect, I'm sure all of you might also conclude with me, is to make people safer. But streets are always made for cars to move faster. While this is the city's reality around the world, and this is the life in the big city, which come with big cost, especially for the children, and how enjoyable our experiences are on our day-to-day times. Well, these small illustrations inform you a lot. Like, the streets are always designed for keeping cars or motorists at their favorite places and keeping people or the vulnerable users often neglected. The impacts of this are pretty high. Impacts of quality of our air is causing premature death in the world today. And as you see, these are one of the major killers of the cities today. Like it is also known that the air particulate materials are seen in early pregnant ladies. So we're killing people slowly. Around 38 million people die each year due to chronic diseases because of lack of physical activity, because they choose car as their primary mode of transit. So we're killing people every day. So around 1.35 million traffic fatalities happen every year. Roughly, to estimate and give you a picture, that's one every 23 seconds. Just today alone, there are 3,700 people dying in different parts of the world due to road fatalities. It is the number one killer between the ages of 5 to 29. As we relooked at how streets are the spaces where health crisis exists, we believe that we need a new approach to designing these streets. And global street designing guide shifts away from purely functional classification of the streets and making it not predominantly vehicular dominant, but also relooking at how we can shift the approach from making it more people-based, understanding that every designing of street have different street users, and aligning it to the context of various people around the streets who use the street. So what is possible? While it's important for us to understand that, getting new streets is hard because most of our built fabrics are already built. So it's critical for us to relook at it from new lenses to understand what is possible and what can be transformed. So let's repurpose the street with facilitating the most vulnerable groups on the streets. Let's provide facilities for non-motorized transport. Let's provide facilities for pedestrians or the vulnerable users to play, pause, sit in these spaces. Let's also look at multimodal transit, which is going to be environmentally sustainable, to be delineated on these huge streets. So I think it's time for us to solve different problems from moving cars to moving people. Generally, our streets are designed for motorists and not for the most vulnerable users of the streets. We want to put people or the most vulnerable road users first. I want to take you through how we could do it by putting people first. And I'll be taking you through certain examples what the Global Street Design Guide have illustrated in the Global Street Design Guidebook, where we try to bring together different expertise, different international practices, and different best practices which have happened around the streets today, which are using just temporary or interim materials. So what is tactical urbanism? Tactical urbanism is nothing but using temporary interim materials to create a great impact, add value, and also test and try out certain solutions. So why use tactical urbanism for streets? One, it can create value. When we relook at our cities today from the lens of different vulnerable users, the needs and challenges of these user groups are quite different. Addressing them can add value to our cities. Tactical urbanism are low-cost solutions which can be quickly tested and quickly, tried. Tactical urbanism is a great way of engaging with communities who further will take up the ownership of these projects. Tactical urbanism is also a way where cities can show big impacts with small minimal changes. Further, tactical urbanism is easily scaled up and can be scalable and replicable in the entire city. Finally, through tactical urbanism, we can achieve all the above goals by creating a campaign around the change in the city. So tactical urbanism can also vary from, like, say, days, which could be like a pop-up transformations, can be through months, where we can actually collate data before doing a capital construction, which takes years and years. So these are tactical urbanism is a great way to test and try these methods, show the measurable impacts, and build support on the interim measure of the transformation. While tactical urbanism is not a single step, but this is a multiple step. The process doesn't include a single step. So where or what are the opportunities for the tactical or interim interventions? These come in many shapes and sizes. And where do you look up for opportunities on streets, ground surfaces, vertical surfaces, landscape elements, lighting, street furniture, and utilities? When I mean ground surfaces, you can relook at your gray infrastructure on the street, which is like the tar road, how it could be repurposed or reutilized. When I mean vertical surface, you can look at the vertical elements around the street, which can be repurposed by street art or activate them by street art. We can also use the corner underused or underutilized spaces along the street where we can add a lot of landscape elements. We can also relook at lighting as one of the major aspects of creating tactical urbanism by creating a newer way of decreasing these dark spots on the streets and creating more impactful lighting, which can also be playful, colorful during the night. We can also look at smaller DIY street furniture, which could be for different age groups. So street furniture could be of different age groups, which can allow people and children to play force. We can also relook at what the utilities or existing utilities are and how they can be transformed through art. So let's see an example or an illustration on how streets or street spaces can be relooked at. In the illustrations from the left to right, the first illustration talks about how a parking space can be adapted. The second illustration talks about how streets can be relooked at. And the third illustration, how we can use a residual space on the streets and how we can relook at it. By converting the parking spaces, we can use it for parklets, or the parking spaces can be curb extensions, allowing people to move freely. And this could be also sidewalk extensions for having other activities on streets. The street spaces can be used for play streets, like you can temporarily close certain part of the streets, use it for play. Or this could be a shared street, which could be enhancing the NMT. And street closures can definitely have higher impact because you can have night markets, you can have different varies of different social community gathering, which we can relook at and repurpose the street for. And how residual space can be turned out? We can use that residual space for creating plazas. We can extend it as a extension of a public space, creating it as a more like a public garden or public median, and closing this free straight or free left turn, we can enhance or extend the sidewalk. So let me take you through more such examples where tactical urbanism in real scenarios have been relooked and repurposed and reworked on. So the first is in New York, where the intersections could have been redesigned using tactical urbanism. So tactical urbanism in Mexico have used tactical urbanism for understanding how traffic calming strategies can work. These in Sao Paulo, Brazil, help people to understand about how mid-block crossing is important and efficient. And in other cities like Addis Ababa, reducing the corner radii, which allowed speeds to be decreased, giving way more for people to wait while crossing. Further, adding medians and refuge islands, aligning traffic or travel lanes, streamlining the travel around this, and also relooking at how transit streets can be relooked at. It also helped in Australia to relook at how bike lanes can be enhanced or demonstrated. And in many parts of New York where public space is a crisis, it helped how parking lots can be converted into park spaces and how parking can be converted into small parklets on streets. In many cities today, we are also looking at how pedestrian-only streets can be demonstrated through tactical urbanism. One of the most famous examples is the New York Times Square. I'm sure most of you are aware, this is one of our first initial projects where we had worked. We did this in a matter of weeks and hours by using only the space that was already there and the materials we had it in hand, like the paint, planter boxes, flexible delineators, signs, traffic control delineators, etc. Almost overnight, we turned this into a pedestrian oasis worthy of its status. Once, which was the crossroads of the world, is now a pedestrian dominant landmark for people, a plaza where people want to be here. By transforming this endless asphalt on the road, making it thriving it as a plaza, by using temporary materials, we turn this place where people want to drive and be here and people want to be here. So my next part of the presentation talks about how we can do a tactical urbanism around your space. So the basic toolkit is simple. This is our simple secret, like every other secret recipes. The ingredients are very simple for transforming any streets. The basic starts with the materials what the city already has, like the paints, planters, pylons, and most importantly, the time of the different users. And when you all put all of this right together at the right time, this adds up to making places for people. So we start with the basic, like we use paint, which is easy mix and very useful for marking spaces. It also lends itself as a quick implementation pop-up and use it for more pilot projects. These are the fastest and easiest ways where we can transform or beautify our spaces. It also lends to the quick implementation, and by designing these patterns and designing these colorful spaces, help people to relook at the street from a different perspective. Also, there are other ways where we designate the users. Maybe certain times we use planters or planter boxes, which acts as vertical or physical separators for people to walk safely in, and rather than getting directly infected or affected by the car. And the paint and the patterns certain times also help them to guide on the street. And once you have the space, you can give the people for a reason for them to stay by just adding a simple chair, adding a protected element, and adding additional placemaking features like tables, shaded spaces like umbrellas, certain kiosks and vendors. It's very important how tactical urbanism is just not meant for making it beautiful, but also helping it for people to enjoy the space by helping it, by creating it, and also by maintaining. Like the street vendor on the right photograph, who's actually the key person who's actually maintaining this tactical urbanism, what we have done. So why is it important? Why? Because it's faster. It can be done in days, weeks, and months versus the construction which takes place years. In the city of Drago the Mar, this intervention on the road, just by using paints, have been repurposed and helped the city to relook at how this small corner island can be transformed. This resulted from a car-dominated street to be more public space for children to play with their caregivers. And why is it important? It is important because it is cost efficient. It is very cheaper compared to something which could be done in crore, it can be done in lakhs. Another example which I want you to look at is because Sao Paulo, Brazil has similar context as Indian context. The cities also face a lack of demonstration money, which is generally not a part of their budget. So we use tactical urbanism just by trying to use paint and segregating the lanes and delineating them and see how the road users are using the space. Similarly, we use this low-cost paint as one of the efficient ways to demonstrate it on a low-speed zone, which we wanted to create on a street. And by converting this into a slow street, we've realized that people who were car-dominated on a street started realigning, relooking at the street, and started spending more time outside, more time on the streets, just by halting, sitting, playing, and pausing on these streets. They bring their own chairs, they come with their own games, and they start living on these streets today. And most of them now feel safe and are very happy for this transformation. So why is tactical urbanism important? Because these are new ideas sometimes which have not been tested. Sometimes different contexts have different troubles. So probably this is a way where we can test new ideas and contextualize certain ideas. I'll be taking you through one of the biggest intersections or one of the black spots in Bogota, Colombia. This was one of the critical intersections which we worked. And this was called the #1 black spot in the city then, because of the highest road fatalities on this junction. The major issues were around the road safety risk because of the freight vehicles which have the high movement on this. They had unsafe, or the junction lacked unsafe pedestrian crossings. Pedestrian crossings, and they were more car dominated. So the entire junction was dependent on car. So it was not designed for the most vulnerable user, which was the pedestrian. So they always had met with the car and had a road fatality or a crash at this junction. So during our first trial at the city junction, we used this pop-up transformation, and this enabled us to reduce the conflicts between the vehicle and pedestrians to 52%. So we see that during the peak hours, there is a 52% of reduction of the conflict between the pedestrians and the vehicles. We've also did a quantitative and qualitative survey during this transformation, where people started playing here, people started using the space for different activities, where 79% of the people who we surveyed wanted it to be a permanent transformation. We also did other surveys which are qualitative, and we understood that during the first phase, more than 85% of the people who've used this roundabout now think that it has definitely improved the road safety. Further, this is the final transformation which happened in the second phase, where we could reduce the roundabout, and given the context, given the challenges what we had certain negotiations which we had to do with the transport authority and the department, and finally we've arrived with this design solution, where this helped us to reduce the speed by 46%. Earlier, the speed on this roundabout was 60 kilometers per hour, and now it's reduced to 32 kilometers per hour. Further, this is my last part of the presentations, where I would be discussing you about 3 major case studies from the scale of critical intersections to a slow zone. And also, there are multiple ways how we as planners, architects, designers can intervene in the built environment and redesign for making better streets or safer streets. I'll also go through certain Indian examples during the presentations. So the first part of the streets is about case studies about how do we reallocate spaces on the streets. So some of the design strategies which we had looked out was in our initial transformation of this intersections in Buenos Aires, where we have used just paint and using just planters. We've understood how space can be reallocated by streamlining the travel lanes and also giving back the space to the people. This is, I'm sure most of you are aware, this is the CSMT junction, or the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminal, which is one of the major intersections of Mumbai. This was one of the coolest projects what we as GDCI have worked. And one of the coolest transformation was we reversed the order how the way cities approach to doing their work on a junction transformation. This also helped people to relook at how built environment and programming can shape into a policy. So the major issues were it had large crossing areas, and it had a large turning radii, which means the speeds were higher. Further, we've demonstrated this as one of our visuals, where we have relooked at aligning the streets, creating spaces for pausing or adding medians along the streets, adding safe crossings so that people can cross over, increase the pedestrian signals so that the people can walk easily, and also the triangle roundabout, which is generally a spot for people to take selfies around the CSMT, could be more efficiently used once we make the space more safer. So what the proposal aligned was to decrease the crossing distance for pedestrians by tightening the turning radii and decreasing the speed. And this is the final proposal which we have done during the trial. And you could see how people are actually moving and how people are more dominantly using the spots which have been painted because they feel more safer on the spaces right now. And how once you align the streets, how the traffic is more streamlined with this tight radii and how they are moving in a designated way. So my second case study is around a campaign idea. I'm sure most of you are aware about this. This is about Rahagiri. This is one of my favorite topics because I was part of this and when I was in Delhi. So I think this is a great case study to look at how tactical urbanism can be relooked at. So Rahagiri Day is one of the India's first car-free citizen initiative, a street event which provided citizens an opportunity to reclaim the streets and enjoy more pedestrian-friendly days and connect with community and nature. So why Rahagiri is important? Because it talks on four aspects, which I think are predominantly why it had enhanced or it could be scaled up. One, it talks about more sustainable mobility aspects. It talks about how roads can be relooked at and how road safety can be demonstrated. It talks about social inclusion or equity on streets. It also repurposes the streets for other uses. So this is on the right side, you could see this is the right current situation of Connaught Place, where there is only 11% of the pedestrian area which has been given to pedestrians, and 89% of the infrastructure is given to vehicles. So Rahagiri Day is a day where it gives back the streets to the people and bringing the people back to the streets. So around 90% of the users who were part of the Rahagiri were users who were pedestrians. 10% used motorists to attend this event. So there were no access to the spaces which have been discarded. Like there were dedicated emergency lanes which have been prioritized during Rahagiri days. There have also been dedicated cycling lanes so that it was more safer for children to cycle around this. There were also dedicated cycling and skating spaces for for people to make people more safer while they use these spaces. So certain activities, I'm sure you're all aware, were on two major aspects, physical activity and cultural activities. So it's relooked and repurposed through Rahagiri. We could see there have been activities on both physical and social and cultural. So cycling, walking, having marathons, having meditation activities, having fitness activities, having campaigns, having dramas, have been certain major activities on the Rahagiri Day. So the impact of this was, like I've mentioned, the impact of this or on the four major aspects where it talks about sustainable mobility, inclusivity, engaging the citizens, and deriving or thriving people to go for more healthy lifestyle. So my second part of the presentation talks about the case study, talks about how compact intersections can be demonstrated by using practical urbanism. By further creating tighter corner radii, curb extensions, or refuge spaces for shorter crossings. So the compact intersections mean like curb extensions, which can be done at the intersections, bulb extensions, which can also be extensions for people to use that for walking and also for universal accessibility, and removing certain slip lanes, which are generally free lefts in India, and using that as an extension of space for people to walk. The compact intersections, like tactical urbanism and compact intersections, help us to reduce the crossing distance and exposure of pedestrians to the cars. And it also improves the visibility. Generally, what happens during any interventions are people are never looked, they're not visible, especially child who is right next to us are generally not visible because of the height. Cars look at it in a different height. So through tactical urbanism and through curb extensions, through tactical urbanism, we can also increase the visibility and also create more public space on the street. So I'll just take you to one of the examples where we have demonstrated. This was in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, where this large intersection was taken up in Ethiopia, where we've realigned the streets. This was a 50-meter carriageway, and like you see, the travel lanes are quite huge here. And the corner radii are very huge so that it was helping them to speed up. So there was wide turning radii, there were long crossing distances, so made people more at risk. So we have done this pop-up at the first pilot stage just to understand if this can work or not work. And we've realized that this is working very efficiently. After the first month, we have repurposed and reworked and interacted with the community, engaged with them, added more street art to the space, and repurposed this entire space by aligning the traffic, aligning the travel lanes, through our studies, we've realized that the response was great. Around 71% people have felt more safer after these interventions. And average traffic or the right turn traffic's speed got reduced due to this intervention. And this further led to the capital construction. So this overall exercise has enabled the city to use tactical urbanism as a tool to demonstrate big changes through smaller key cost or smaller low cost. So I think the capital construction took place after a series of collecting data, understanding how people are moving and how efficiently this is working. My second example on the similar lines is about in Mumbai, where we have worked around Mid-Chowki, where we had large turning radii, large crossings, and where we had repurposed this just by using paints and already existing traffic delineators, using planter boxes, and relooked at the entire street by creating shorter crossing distances, making shorter corner radii. So I think I will end the presentation here. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunities. Finally, to give away, I will lead the presentation with these three major key aspects, what we can look at, or the key takeaways, what all of us can take away from the presentations. One is streets are the assets of the cities, and these are the spaces where we can easily convert them into public spaces. Second, we can design making people at the center. All our streets can be relooked at or repurposed or relooked at through a lens by making people at the center. Third, I would be saying that it's always good to measure the impact what you have created through tactical urbanism and communicate it to the city or spaces where you're thriving to work around. So through this way, we can not only communicate the change, but also understand the data and work around the data before doing any capital constructions. So I think these are my key three takeaways from tactical urbanism. And thank you once again for joining in. I have just put up a QR code for you to scan and give me a feedback. And if you have any question and answers, this is the time for our Q&A right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jashwant. I think it was a wonderful presentation. So the floor is now open for questions. I asked the participants that they can either unmute themselves and ask the question, or they can put it in the chat box, whichever they feel comfortable with. But yeah, if there's any question, then please feel free to go ahead and ask. And I think in the meantime, I think Yashwant, I'll just start with a question of my own, because as I was looking through the presentation and listening to you, one thing that came to my mind was that we talked a lot about interim interventions, like tactical interventions can also be translated into like these short-term interim quick interventions. But I do want to also ask, and I would request you to talk a bit about what goes on sort of behind the scenes,
Right.
in a way that let's say, so if for example you're talking about extending the curb corners, right, but that in itself would that would make it safer for the pedestrians, but also that would mean that sort of place becomes should be capable, like after the intervention it should be capable of handling the traffic itself, right, because that is also a criteria that we cannot cannot neglect, just to make it safe for pedestrians. So my request to you would be to just talk a bit about this behind the scenes sort of calculations that go on into the whole idea of handling not just the volume of traffic that is there, but also in terms of how that correlates to the pedestrian movement that is happening. Because inadvertently, when you make it safer, the number of pedestrians will also increase, right? So that is also an increase in the volume. So what sort of calculations or what sort of thinking goes into tackling those aspects?
Yeah, thanks, Tushar. I think that's a great question. I think to answer to that, there are I can scale this presentation where we can talk about evaluation and monitoring metrics, where we talk about different metrics, what we collate before doing an intervention and after doing an intervention. So that's a great way where you can understand how we process or how we demonstrate certain interventions like tactical urbanism before going to a capital construction. So understanding where you come from, you think that I mean, a lot of people, not only you, I think the transport officials and the police department and traffic police generally have this extensions or in their mind saying that, oh, when you do this for pedestrians, oh, we're gonna have clockage or we're gonna have more traffic volumes increasing on the streets. I want to just highlight one thing, like we are, people who are sitting in a car are generally shelled out, right? They're in most safest position or place where they are at right now. So the most vulnerable is generally the pedestrian because he is putting his life at risk while walking on the street. So I think we look at it from that lens, and that's how we work around it. But there is definitely an analysis of how we repurpose, how the traffic volumes or the travel lanes have been aligned through certain, like traffic volume counts, traffic impact analysis, what we do, certain metrics of collecting how people move, where people stop, where people halt, where vehicles stop, where vehicle parking is required, or why there is congestion at one point, and how cycles can be relooked at, like the pedestrian or the traffic signal cycles can be relooked at. So I think that is where I would want to stop my answer. I think that is how we relook at. But like I've said, I have the QR code or a feedback form where I have my series of this thing. This is an introductory session for all the people out there and all the students to know what is tactical urbanism. I have a series of material where we talk about the fundamentals on how to create safer streets and how to engage communities, how to collect data, which is before and after the transformation, and how do you communicate. So I think this is just a start. But I think once I see the enthusiasm with the audience, and once students want to sign it up for, we have GSDG, which is Global Street Design Guide, which is a great free download book which all of you can refer. It has illustrations, it has case studies, examples beyond what we are relooking our streets at, and most of it have been endorsed by cities, and cities are taking this as an example to relook at their streets and making it more safer for pedestrians.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. So yeah, if there's any participant who want to ask a question, then please feel free to go ahead. I think in the meantime, I would also like to welcome architect Prabhudeep Mehta, who is also a mentor for the school. Welcome, ma'am, to the webinar. So yes, if there's any question, then please feel free to ask. In the meantime, sir, Mehta sir, if you would want to give in your feedback or your views, or if there's any question that you would want to ask. So,
okay, can I say something, Tushar?
yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Jashwanth, I think it's a very interesting presentation you've made, and some of the case studies you have brought about, I think they encourage everyone to experiment, try out, and see what assets we have in city as public spaces. They could be more meaningful for those who deserve it most, and that could become a rule in a few experimentations, that this is how the priorities of a city, which cares for its citizens, need to be. So I think it's a very, very encouraging, thought-provoking presentation, and I look forward to your continued indulgence on some of the specifics. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, is there any other question? Jashwant, if you could just check the chat box as well. I think Pratima has said a few words.
Yeah, I think no questions in
Okay.
the chat box, but I think it's been great. So I encourage everyone
Okay.
to just to go just to scan this QR code. You can download our guidebooks. These are great books to look at, great publications to look at, and I think it will help you to reimagine or relook at the streets from different lenses. So yeah, thanks Tushar. Thanks for your time. Thanks
Okay.
Peria
I think
College of
wait.
Architecture.
We do have. I think I do have one question that I'm getting from one of the participants. But they
Right.
sent it to me basically. So the question is that could you give a bit more detail as to how the Bogota roundabout change was achieved? Like if you could just give a bit more detail on that.
So Bogota was part of the Bloomberg Initiative for Global Road Safety. So this is an initiative which was working on the road safety aspect of it by creating zero deaths around the city. So this is one of the cities out of 30 cities around the world. And how Bloomberg works is through technical advisory, and also like GDCI comes in the aspect of safer streets aspect, where we design, give technical advisory, and also train the cities on the fundamentals of safer streets and how cities can relook at this guidebook or use other guidebooks to demonstrate different street designs, and also work around the policy demonstration and street designing aspects. So there are different people doing different things under the global road safety. So there is surveillance team which works around with the transport or the traffic police department, which does the surveillance aspect of it. There is a communication team with the vital strategies or the Bloomberg embedded staff, where they talk about road safety with the helmet restrictions or seatbelt restrictions, which is important in the city. So these are different aspects. And so how Bogota had come up as a limelight was, so we have a formula or an understanding how traffic fatalities happen and what is the black spot in a city. So we understand black spot is a spot which has a spillover around the 500-meter radii, where they have the highest number of road fatalities. So that's how city understands what is a black spot. So that is the first step where we have understood, okay, this intersection is where it requires the highest or the biggest transformation what the city requires because of the road fatalities. Second is, like I said, before we start, we have different stakeholders around the street where we encourage to have capacity building and training, and also engage with them to understand the challenges and issues. Third, being delineating the site limits on where this influx or the traffic volumes are getting emerged from, and how, if is there a road alignment or is there a road rerouting which can be looked up for. And finally is a design which is which is like a consensus design which is approached by understanding the stakeholders importance in, and also the design principles what we put out, and come to an agreement on for a transformation which is a tactical urbanism. So that's the process what we follow, and further allowing us with the existing materials like paints, bollards, basic materials, to relook at the geometry and start designing, and if the behavior of the vehicles are being taken up for. And similarly, we did a programming activity where we've invited children, parents, and the residents around that to come and be a part of this event, and which turned out to be a huge success. And similarly, we did this trial for close to 2 months, understanding, collating the data, which further enabled us to go to the capital construction.
Okay. Thank you. So I think Surya had also raised his hand. So Surya, if there's anybody, if there's any question that you would want to ask.
Yeah, there is a small one. Nice presentation, Jashwant. Actually, it's very informative and good to know various examples across the world. And yeah, of course, being in this type of work, I have referred these guidelines several times, and I would suggest others also do so, because they're very important when you talk about public space. Just that I just wanted him to throw some light what's happening in India right now for the listeners. So what's next for the GDCA, and how what are we can look like we can wait and watch for those works to come up. So it would be interesting to see what is happening currently, like which cities are showing some interest, or work is happening, or what kind of work is happening. That's it.
Thanks, Surya. Thanks for your insightful thoughts on it. I think to be precise and to be very honest, we've been working with Mumbai in Maharashtra from the past 4 or 5 years under the Bloomberg Initiative of Global Road Safety. Another city where we are also working is Delhi, where we've been working with the Delhi Ministry of Transport. So I think the students who are part of the Periyar College of Architecture, the feedback form has a last statement in it that if you want to be part of our tactical interventions and if you are excited to paint streets and see how transformation happens in real life, we're doing an exercise in Rajendra Nagar in Karol Bagh or Rajendra Place, where we are still finalizing the dates. It can happen this month or like the October end or post Diwali, where we're transforming one of the major streets and junctions, the Gol Chakkar in Rajendra Nagar, just to understand how tactical urbanism can work. So, and to throw more insights on what we as GDCI are working in India right now is in Mumbai, we have submitted different proposals on different black spots. And the Bloomberg Initiative, we're only working under the Bloomberg Initiative for Global Road Safety in India. But we're also helping other cities to be equipped with certain other aspects. Like we're working with Nasik for the school zone improvement program, which I think is a great way to relook at the streets from a school child perspective and the caregiver perspective, where we're trying to demonstrate how streets can be reworked and repurposed. And this is just not a GDCI's initiative, but also we're using the help of World Bank to do an IRAP assessment or an audit around the school zones. So that's one of the other projects where we're working with Nasik. And I think to sum it down, under the Bloomberg Initiative of Global Road Safety, where the vision lies to bring down the deaths to zero, there are 4 parameters, like I've mentioned. 1 is communication, 2 is working on capacity building and training, 3 is about demonstrating and creating new policies, 4, it is about developing street interventions. So these are the 4 major aspects where we're working in cities in Mumbai, Pune, and in Delhi. And Nasik being just like the forefront runner only around the school zone improvement program. But under the Bloomberg Initiative, there's another city where WRI India is working, which is Bangalore. And also WRI India is also supporting certain activities in Mumbai and also in Delhi. So we work with the government agencies as technical advisory board, and we provide assistance on technical assistance, capacity building and training. We also work in policy demonstration or policy level changes, wherein we can develop new street design guidelines or look at the existing street design guidelines and rework and revamp them. So that's the work we're doing. So I hope this give you an insight on it.
It's really nice to know, and I would really encourage students to be part of the Delhi intervention. I guess it will be something interesting to know, like what is before, what is after, and I would really encourage people to be part of it who are in Delhi actually. Okay. Thank you, Jashwant. Thanks for your answer.
Thank you, Surya, for the question, and thank you, Justin, for the wonderful answer. I think with this, we can bring the webinar to a close. But Justin, before that, I would request that you put your email ID in the chat box, because a few participants wanted to connect with you. So if you could just do that, then post that, we can probably bring the webinar to a close.
Sure. I think I have just put my email ID in the chat box. So
yes.
Anything you can reach out to me.
And I think I'll also add in the email ID of the school, so that in case any participant wants to connect with us, or they have any ideas about that they would want to present in a similar manner, then they can connect with me over that as well. So just to give a few minutes for the participants to note it down. Okay. I think with this we can bring the webinar to a close. I thank Jason once again for the wonderful presentation, and also for making time for us and sharing his ideas with us. I also thank all the participants who have made time for us today to come and attend the webinar. And I hope that you have been able to take away something productive from this. So just before closing, I would like to inform everyone about the Every Friday webinar series. It's being organized by the Periyar School of Architecture, New Delhi. So the webinars are, as mentioned, the webinars are a platform for young professionals to express their ideas and are aimed at students and young architects. With this, I would like to bring the webinar to a close. I thank everyone present. Please have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.